So there's been a lot said about Venom, the MCU, the Sony Spider-Verse, everything connecting, everything not connecting, conflicting news that seems to line up with a first story that says they're confirmed, then they contradict that themselves with something else, and then they contradict that contradiction with another contradiction. It's literally just a spiraling mess, and they never just want to outright come out and say no. Venom, Black Cat, Silver Sable are not part of the MCU. They're always dancing around it. So I'm going to try to take this video to explain to you guys what I honestly think they're doing without admitting it. So let's get into the basics. First and foremost, we know that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is one entity. So we're going to have that on top to represent everything that's underneath it. Next up, we know that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has a few different outlets which it makes, different content for. The MCU, the main one up there, is going to represent the movies. And then the next one we're going to talk about is the Marvel Cinematic Universe Netflix series, which are all, of course, part of the bigger Marvel Cinematic Universe. The only difference being is the fact that the Netflix shows do mention what happens in the movies, but not the other way around. And this is for obvious reasons. The TV shows have 12 to 13 episodes a season, whereas to the movie only has about 2.5 hours tops. So in that way, everything that happens in the bigger movie universe, because it's at a grand scale, affects what happens and what's mentioned in the Netflix series. Now after that, we of course have another outlet for TV, and this is of course ABC's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and this is where I also presume the Inhumans and Cloak and Dagger will also fall under. Much like Netflix, everything that happens in the MCU directly affects these series, with one special thing that's happened. The actual Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV series has had stars from the movies appear, and of course Agent Coulson, who is the star of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., had his first big screen appearance in Iron Man. So everything right there is connected, even closer than the Netflix stuff. Now this next step is where things get interesting, because this is where we add Spider-Man. Now Spider-Man is of course a direct spin-off of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but he is being handled by Sony. So don't ever expect to see Spider-Man or Spider-Man characters appear in any of the Netflix or ABC TV stuff, because it's particularly just a Sony property that they are sharing with the Marvel Cinematic Universe and Disney. So everything that happens in the bigger MCU movieverse will affect directly what happens in Spider-Man and vice versa. Now this is where all the confusion starts, because once we start adding in Venom, this is where everything gets tossed up in the air. Amy Pascal herself even said that the Venom movie and Silver and Black is all an adjunct to what is happening in Spider-Man. And Spider-Man can show up in those movies, but don't expect much of it going the other way around. Essentially, imagine if Spider-Man is the MCU, which he is. Now notice how Netflix never reflects what's happening. Like anything that happens in Netflix isn't affecting the bigger MCU. Well, Venom isn't going to have a direct reference to what happens in Spider-Man, even though they're going to be in the same exact universe. This is because Venom and Silver and Black and all these are going to be smaller scale movies. So to make things even easier, let me update this. Everything bounces back and forth. Everything is working with each other except one thing. Spider-Man, like Amy Pascal said, can appear in Venom and Silver and Black. And he will. The difference is, nothing that happens in these movies will have a major effect to what happens in Spider-Man, and those ramifications will never be seen in the larger MCU. So it's just like what's happening on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and what's happening with the Marvel Netflix stuff. Because the Netflix stuff, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. largely now, and of course, the whole upcoming shows like Inhumans and Cloak and Dagger, they're all adjuncts to what's happening in the actual MCU. They're a part of the story, but they are not a crucial part. So to make things even simpler, everything will feed off one another, but Venom and all these will not feed off of the MCU as a large, because they can't. And I honestly believe that's how they're going to be handling these movies. If they weren't going to handle them this way, then why haven't they just come out and said, no, that's not how we're doing it? It is literally the only answer that can possibly make sense to this when you consider what they said. They outright said that Spider-Man can appear in these, and they teased that Tom Holland will be in this. She outright said it, and then they backtrack these, but they never in their backtracks outright say, oh no, that's never happening. So I think they're literally just waiting to surprise everybody, and there's probably going to be something in an upcoming movie, probably Infinity War, that's going to kind of bring all this a little closer together. We just don't really know it yet. So hopefully that explained it for you guys, and you can let me know your thoughts on it down below.